What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another Digital Artcast. I'm your host, Gordy, and we are back with another episode on another awesome artist. Again, just throwing these out here as quickly and as rapidly as I can because I feel like I've been lacking in content in the last couple of months just because I've been so busy with work and freelancing. So, yeah, basically just trying to get guests on when I can. And I've been lucky the last couple of episodes I've managed to get a good couple of 3D artists that I've really wanted on the show for a while. And the next guy I've got on just now is someone who I've admired from afar from a couple of years. His work kind of came across my path through one of his tutorials he published, and since then I've just been a fan of his work. Welcome onto the show, Tobias Koepp. What's happening?
Hi, Tobias? What's up? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries, man. No worries. I'm saying that right, Tobias Koepp. That's accurate.
Oh no, but people always get it wrong. It's the last name is Koepp, which is kind of like a German pronunciation.
Okay.
So I always have to spell it or like write it out for people because it's really difficult.
Yeah. Well, I noticed with your profile, but are you originally from Germany, Sweden, or where are you from originally? Like, where do you kind of hail from?
I'm born in Germany, but currently I work in Stockholm, Sweden.
Oh, okay, cool, awesome. Yeah. It's always hard with me, especially with European accents. It's always hard to place, but I'm a fan of Germany. It's the one language actually I took in school that I was still pretty good at when I left. So
nice.
I can do all the basics and introduce myself and say hello and goodbye. So I usually throw that one when I bump into Pauline Voss or Spiridon at some events. Always kind of try and throw my crappy German out of them. But yeah, that's awesome, man. Thanks for giving up your time and coming on the show.
Oh, sure.
Totally appreciate it. So yeah, like I was saying in the intro, and as we were talking earlier, me and Tobias were actually having a kind of fanboy talk out about video games and stuff before we started recording. But I was just saying that I came across your stylized dungeon tutorial. That would have been 2-3 years ago now, something like that.
Probably 3 years ago I made that one.
Yeah, and that to me was, like I said, again, we were talking about this before we started recording, but I felt like there was a lack of not just environment tutorials, but mostly stylized tutorials. I've not seen a ton of them that I've came across that are the same kind of style, and I think when I saw that, because I was such a fanboy of Blizzard stuff as well, and I wanted to work there, when I saw the tutorial, I was like, oh, this is sick, and this is really awesome. So, what was the kind of inspiration even behind that? Was it? Did you feel there was a lack of stuff, or was it just something you wanted to put out in the ether? Or
the whole reason for this is super boring. Like I got approached by some people from 3D Motive who were asking me for a tutorial.
Right.
So then I started thinking about what can I do? What would people like to see? And then we kind of agreed on, okay, let's make an environment. And then we discussed, about time and money and all that. And then we ended up making like this diorama. And I've just gone for dungeon, couple different textures, cool lighting. I think this is what people can definitely try.
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome for me, and I think you hit the nail on the head there. It was 3D Motive. I remember, I think I was initially looking at that website because someone had recommended it for learning 3D at the time. Because at the time you got to university, like no one was teaching us really anything to do. Like my last interview actually, I just spoke with a guy, Adam, who's out working in Tokyo, and he was saying the same when he went to uni in the UK. It was a very basic course. Nobody was really teaching you art within 3D. It was literally just, here's the program, here's how to make a cube, here's how to make a sphere. And your assignment is make a whole environment in 3 weeks, even though you know next to nothing. So, that was we were then searching online for, like Gnomon and, I don't know if Learn Squid was about at the time, and other places like who could offer. And then I think 3D Motive was one of the more prominent ones we found that done tutorials and stuff. So but I mean, that was awesome. I mean, you say it's boring, but at least getting approached by a place like Motive would be a big opportunity, because then your work is getting kind of
exactly. So back then there was really good timing, and because I think maybe it was probably 3.5 years ago or something, and then it was my first job. So having then some more content and working on a tutorial that many people will see is good. Like also good exposure, as stupid as this sounds sometimes, but exposure also sometimes quite nice.
No, of course, yeah. And then, but then So you were working for them doing that tutorial before you actually had your first job?
No, it was during my first job, but
Okay.
they just approached me during that time and it's like, okay, a couple evenings a week, I'll work on this and get
Yeah.
some extra money. And also, like for me, also this is good to have on my portfolio still, I think, because it
Of
shows that
course.
I can also show other people or teach other people some skills.
Yeah, which leads into if you want to go into a lead singer role, then obviously you can pass that information on. So yeah, that was great. And then I mean, since then you've just kind of put out these personal projects. I mean, it's difficult obviously when you work in the industry. A lot of your stuff is under NDA, so you can never really share stuff. But yeah, you've managed to keep stuff. I mean, quite rapidly. I mean, even the fact that now you're working at King, and you managed to still do work with Spyro, the Reignited trilogy, but that wasn't through King, right? That was just a totally just with that company, and it was freelance.
Yes, that was before I joined King. I had like half a year of freelance because I was quitting another job, and
Okay.
this opportunity came up. And Toys for Bob, the
Mhm.
company who made Spyro now, and before they made the toy. What's the other toy game? Skylander. Yeah.
Skylanders, yeah.
So they approached me. I was like, hey, I kind of know what kind of games they've done, and sure, I'm interested. Let's talk about this. And then the moment I found out, yeah, we're actually remaking Spyro, was super awesome.
Yeah, I could imagine. Yeah, like again, we were talking about this before we started recording, but yeah, we both grew up playing Spyro, and
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still literally waiting for that Jack and Daxter re-release. Like, that's going to be my absolute fave because, like, apart from Spyro, like Jack and Daxter was also one of my favorite games growing up. So yeah, which is even better because talking about childhood kind of goals and stuff. I'm going to Trojan Horse Was a Unicorn this year again, the second year, and they just announced their first speaker, and it's Amy Hennig. And apart from writing the Uncharted series, she also started at Crystal Dynamics writing the Legacy of Kain series, and that for me was one of my all-time favorite game franchises. So I mean that's going to be like just an incredible feeling to meet her and talk about like what an impact she had in my life with those games. But yeah, I think it's just one of these things once you start working in games or film, like getting to work in these franchises you grew up with. It's amazing. It's just a dream. You almost would do it for free if you didn't have to pay rent and eat. Right? That's the only downfall. So yeah,
Yeah,
um,
those things, you need to get paid, otherwise you can't live.
yeah. Yes, what was the somebody had put it on it was a Facebook post and it was like, oh no, what was it? It was something like somebody had captured a comment on Facebook or Twitter and it was like some guy put like fucking artists always asking for money for this stupid passion they're supposed to be able to do for free. And then like
Rent and food and yeah.
yeah, the guy's like, oh man, he's probably going to blow it all in money and on what is it, on shelter and food. I was like, yeah, pretty much. Like,
So selfish.
oh god, man. Like even people are like that. Like, oh, you work in games. Oh, you must get to do nothing all day. And we're like, ah, fuck it, I wish. Like, I've got to earn money. Like, I've got to do something to be worth money. So, yeah, that's always the hardest part when you explain to your family or friends like you work in video games. They just
Yeah,
think that
lazy.
you
Exactly.
like you're.
Show me the job where you actually get paid just playing a
I
game
know
for
for doing
environment
nothing.
for 8 hours a day.
Like you're just skateboarding down the aisles, like firing Nerf guns at people. So yeah, it's oh god. So I mean, apart from all you've done recently and these big things you got to work on, where was the start? Where did it begin? Did you go to university for this? Did you go on a course as well, or
I actually started university, just very, very classic way of getting into the industry, I would say. This was, my course was like 4 years, and I moved to the Netherlands for that,
okay?
just because I was kind of interested in like moving to like other places. And in Europe, it's quite easy, so you can just go kind
Yeah,
of. Um, and the Netherlands was quite, it was affordable, which in Germany you have a lot of like very private courses. I don't know if it's the same still, because I think, when did I start? I think 2011. So I don't know how it works these days, but
right, yeah,
was a good option to go to the Netherlands. And it was just a 4 year course, a lot of 3D, um, very general. Like you learn a lot, animation, like rendering, character art. So you kind of, as a person or as a student, you have to kind of find your own niche and what you want to get better at. Otherwise, you're very generalist and not very good at anything in the end.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And then did you know kind of early on where you wanted to focus, or were you still leaving uni like I'm not sure what I want to do, or I haven't really got a great indication where I want to go, or
Yeah, and I think in the beginning, I mean, I before that, I've never really done 3D, so I was always interested in 3D. But when we started learning animation, I totally thought I was going to be an animator at
oh
someday.
god,
But
yeah.
uh, it's not what I'm good at.
Yeah, I think it's people have the similar. I mean, like my course was animation based as well, and when you initially get in it, you kind of think, "Oh, that could be cool. I might enjoy that." Because I think people just associate that with the days when they used to watch cartoons and think that would be something fun to do. But then 3D animation in itself, I mean, no wonder there is, a great amount of people who want to do 3D animation because it is, a very, unless you love it, it's a very tedious thing to do. Because
Yeah, I have really a big respect for people because like I think it's still very awesome to see something come to life. And I think when we started learning it, it was very quick. Like we had a bouncing ball or something in it, and
oh
like
god, yeah, I've done that as well.
within like half an hour it jumped. I was like, oh wow! So the satisfaction is so quick. But then
Mm.
the more you get into it, you're like, oh no, this is actually really hard.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, when I got the great opportunity to go and do my internship up at Axis in Glasgow, they were working on a couple of features at the time for stuff, and watching them animate stuff was just like how they had the patience to do some of that stuff. It was crazy, absolutely crazy. So yeah, mad respect for people who want to do that. And then when you left uni and you kind of were wandering about, where was your first like paid gig? Was it within the Netherlands, or did you have to move back? Or
Oh no, I had to move. Like finding that first job was quite took some time. I think it took me like half a year to find my first job, and
okay,
luckily I had some friends who were like in a year like after me that they had currently like their internship in an outsourced studio that was in Spain, and
okay,
they kind of helped me get a job there. So I had to move to Spain for that one.
okay. Wow, was that the Coatsink crew you were with, or
That was Elite 3D, which is an outsourcing studio. They make like games for all sorts of stuff. And I think when I was there, I worked on like some of the Call of Duty franchise, but it was mostly assets and also doing mobile game assets. So like a bit of everything was really like for the learning experience was really nice because you kind of get to try a bit of everything
a
and
lot of stuff? Yeah,
see
no,
like
that's
how
awesome.
like what kind of workflows different companies are using. So that was definitely quite beneficial.
I mean, that's interesting you say as well. Like even with the Call of Duty stuff. I mean, have you found that your work is more? Have you done more, like I say, realistic stuff? Have you done more realism versus the stylized stuff you're probably known for, or
I think I mean like my personal style or like preference was always stylized because I kind of see it like this: if you want to work somewhere, do something you like, and then you kind of find a job that you can do with the things you like instead of
yeah,
forcing yourself to do something that you might not enjoy as much.
right?
But I would say working there like on these kind of assets was really helpful because it it just you try to like replicate something as closely as possible, and that really sharpens your skills. Even then, if you go back to doing stylized stuff,
Yeah, it applies to that as well. Yeah, I mean that's interesting. I'm just saying because some people always talk about like should I do realism, should I do this, should I? And then yeah, I think the answer is just do what makes you happy. But then I think with more, especially working in outsourcing studios, Access was the same. They look for people who could move between genres, so
yeah,
people who could
exactly.
do more sci-fi stuff, and also who could do super. I mean, they just recently released the Blizzard short they done for them, the Heroes of the Storm cinematic for one of the characters, and that was like proper stylized 3D stuff that you typically see with Blizzard, and then they also have done like Warhammer 40k. When I was there, they were doing the Dawn of War 3 stuff. So yeah, they basically have a wide gambit artists who can turn to each style. But I think it is important as an artist that you can be flexible on projects because then yeah, you don't know where the next paycheck will be coming from. So
Exactly. You need to be a bit versatile and also kind of sometimes just accept that it might not be the project you want to work on, but it's better for you if you have more than just one skill. So it's also easier for you to stay at your job or like switch around.
Yeah, totally. And then, of course, when you're working, you can always freelance projects if you want to really get involved in something. Sometimes there will be opportunities to work on it, like like Spyro. It will come along when you can at least expect it, and it will be something you want to do. But Spyro for you came like I don't even know how many years, but years after you'd worked in different studios and done other things that weren't maybe related to what you wanted to do. Although I'm assuming King would be a great opportunity again to flex that muscle because they're typically known for the more stylized stuff that they do through mobile. So, is that the case at King? Are you getting to be more yourself there?
I mean, the King is very casual, and like if you want to like reach like millions of players like they do, then you have to have a certain style that appeals to like the most people possible. So yeah, like if you
Yeah,
look at the games, they're very accessible, very stylized. And of
yeah,
course, like then I think I mean the opportunity for Spyro came because I've done all these stylized personal projects on my portfolio. So I would have never known they worked on Spyro if they haven't approached me. So for me, this would have been a total surprise. But because I
yeah,
had this work, I had the opportunity to work on it, and the same with King because they saw what I've been doing. They also contacted me, and so this is kind of the work you put in, like in your portfolio. And if you show you're passionate about a certain style, then people will also reach out to you.
yeah, totally. I mean, I've seen so many people I know take on side gigs, and a lot of the guys recently I've been working with. Some of the guys, I think it's Airborne Studios, and
Hmm.
they do stuff for Blizzard, the skins for Overwatch and stuff. So, yeah, people have been getting work through that as well. And yeah, I think that's the same thing is that you might not get the opportunity to work within Blizzard within the studio, but there's always maybe opportunity to do outsource stuff because they do look for. I mean, like Axis is in Glasgow, but yeah, they got the opportunity to work on the Heroes of the Storm short, which was great. So people who've worked at the studio in Glasgow can say, "Yeah, I've worked on a Blizzard project." So I mean, it's a big deal for a lot of people. So yeah, it's great that these outsourcing studios now exist, and there is an opportunity for people to branch out and try new things outside of their comfort zone. So
Yeah, some projects are just so big they don't fit in a like in a physical space in a studio. They just need so much help from
yeah,
the outside. Like when we worked on Spyro, there was like this entire group of like people, like freelancers, just supporting them from like all across the world because
yeah,
I don't think they had the capacity, and it was really awesome to see like some like you were just like seeing in the chat like all these names that you like you were so inspired by like, hey, we work on the
yeah.
same thing. This is so cool.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we had this conversation the last time me and Adam talked, and it was literally about with the layoffs at EA and Blizzard and Telltale shutting down. They were kind of saying, is the model of having a game studio, is that something that can be sustained for the long term, or are you going to find it's more people being freelance positions working from around the globe just via email, like kind of virtual kind of studio environment where you're working from your desk but still talking to people and still going to meetings on Skype and stuff. I don't know. Do you feel that is valid at all, or do you feel like game studios can still exist in a way? Or
So I think short game studios still exist and should exist, but it's probably like you never know how the industry is changing. It's changing so fast. But for like environment artists or asset artists, for example, I think a lot of freelance work or asset work gets outsourced because like many studios only employ like environment artists and they get their assets done like elsewhere, and so there's probably some shifting in resources, but there's always a need for people to actually build a game in a physical space. I think it's very beneficial.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I think the models can both exist. I think it's just the size of the companies that can sometimes be overreaching, or things that can be maybe. I mean, I don't know. I don't know too much about the actual details of it, but I do know that I think the last time I checked, the EA guys, especially, a lot of the people that were let go were like the marketing team or people that had worked within publishing or post production stuff. So I don't think it was maybe the art side that was affected as much, but yeah, it's just a kind of scary. But I think it's just because the industry to me is also very new. I like a lot of people who work in the games industry are now like that's just a thing for them now. They understand that like at any minute their job could be in danger, and although that really sucks, I mean I think it is just the way that because you're publishing a product that really in essence can go either way. Like people can hate it or people can go out and buy it in millions. So the consumer really has a lot of power over the studio. And I think as soon as I started to see, especially when Anthem just got released, I was really looking forward to that. And I think when it started to get a lot of the negative press, my mind went straight to, because I know a couple of the guys who work in that studio, and I was like, yeah, I'm almost fearing for their jobs now, because who knows what's going to happen now, because it's got the kind of negative backlash. Um, so yeah, it's always a worry, I think, for games industry artists. Is that why you push your personal stuff so much? Do you feel like that's almost like a safety net that's there for you?
Well, I think it's good to stay like common, or like at least show every now and then that you have some work, because yeah, it's true. You never know. Like if like I mean, you never know if you get laid off or something, or have to change jobs for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And then it's good to not have to suddenly start making a portfolio, but already kind of having one, and that is quite current, I would say, so that you can just go out again and try to look for a new job.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the power of personal projects has been something that I've seen at nearly every talk I've been to in the last 3 years, 4 years. People keep talking about, like, yeah, you need to stay relevant, you need to be still kind of producing stuff even though you're working, and it can be hard, I think, especially for people who are just starting out in the industry, to balance a project plus, go to their work 5 days a week. But like you said, it keeps you relevant. It keeps you within the aspect of, if something happens, you have got this, you know, portfolio work. Because yeah, I mean, people have done it. You can work on a project in a studio for 4 or 5 years, and then at the end of it, you might not get to actually show what you worked on.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, you need
There's
stuff.
always, I mean, for most of the time, you work on something, you're under NDA. Projects can never like reach the end, or you leave a company before the game gets shipped, or you don't get the permission to show like some of your work. For example, like
Yeah,
a couple of games where I'm just not allowed to show some of that. So what do?
yeah,
I do something on my own, which
yeah.
I have kind of the rights over, and I can show without having to fear for someone like, no, no, this is not allowed.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I definitely feel that's something that a lot of guys will struggle. I mean, there was even, again, back to a Facebook meme. There was someone who had put on like a joke thing, and it was like, the guy showing like, "Oh, this is my dog," and then the guy would say, "Does he bite?" And he says, "No, but he can hurt you in other ways." And then he looks down at the dog, and the dog says, "Nothing you've done this year can go in your portfolio," which I thought was quite good.
Yeah,
So,
there's also so much work you do like before a game, for example, can go in production. So you do all this cool work, but it will never be used in the end product, so you can't show it.
yeah, no, I could. I mean, especially, I think, particularly, again, I draw for this a lot, but it's because it's the only real industry experience I've had. But when I was at Axis, a lot of the things would be a thing where people couldn't show stuff because you're in that outsourcing field. You don't really hold the power or the permissions. It's with the other company. So when Axis is doing work, like, for Amazon or any other company, they had to then say to the guys at the other company, can we show stuff? And then if they said no, then yeah, it would get lost to the ether. You would never see it. And they couldn't really fight that, because it's not their IP, it's not their project. Initially, it's not something that they own outright. So whereas if you work for a games company and they own the game, then they can, they've got more a direct say to say, yeah, you can, or no, you can't. So um, yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
interesting.
I mean, I worked. My first job was in an outsource too, so we don't have the rights. So it's only kind of nice of them if we are allowed to show it, but we're just providing a service, and our
Yeah,
job is to give them like an asset, and that's
yeah,
it. And if they say yes, you can show it, that's just them being nice.
yeah.
But yeah, we just there to do their work basically.
Yeah, just stuff that they feel like they can't, spend a lot of time on, so they'll just outsource it to somebody else. Yeah, yeah. Which is interesting, because one of the guys I'm working with just now, who's helping me with my 3D, he's actually an artist in the Call of Duty franchise, and he does talk about a lot about, the stuff that they send out, for outsourcing. And yeah, it just seems like it's just a more efficient way now of building games. You want to be able to just say, well, this stuff can get built and this needs more attention, but then we can take all this chunky work and just throw it at an outsourcing studio. And yeah, it makes the load of the game a lot easier to contemplate, especially when you're building something like Call of Duty, which is such a huge thing. So yeah, so that was, I mean, that's been a kind of journey. You went from Elite 3D straight to King. But then, do you have an angle? Do you have a kind of a thing in sight that would be your ultimate, like something you'd love to work on, or a company? I mean, we've talked about, like, we both love Blizzard, but then is there any, like, would you love to go work there, or would you just even want to work on a project with them, or is there a company or a game you really want to work on, or?
After Elite, I was still Code Sync was my next company, which was like the VR mobile company, and then I went to King, just to throw that in there. But as I think for me, because I've worked in mobile like a very long time, I still like really want to be working on like larger scale environments, like something more like Spiral, where you have a bit more like as a player, a bit more freedom, or can be a bit more immersed. So like environment
Right.
artist is still like on the top of my list for like any future project. And then
Yeah.
also for me, it's would be cool to kind of mix that with like something stylized. Like if I look around in Europe, I can see like Rare, for example, doing the Sea of Thieves, which is like looks super amazing,
Oh yeah, yeah.
super like fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, of course, Blizzard is also very high on that list always.
Of course, yeah, yeah. I think it's the pinnacle. I think for most people in our field, like I think it's one of the few places that, you know, like that Santa Monica, teaching at Nomon, or a couple of stuff like that, or going up to Canada and Toronto for EA. So yeah, I think the ones on the other side of the water are always a pipe dream for a lot of people. I think it's one place a lot of people want to try and even just experience. I mean, maybe people won't always love it as much as they think, but I think even just having the opportunity to go out and say you've been there is a big um, accolade on your portfolio. And it seems every time I talk to people who have worked there, or look at a lot of people on my friends' feed who have got jobs there, it always seems like they're having an absolute blast. So yeah, I think it's definitely high on the list for those reasons. I think I talked about this earlier, and people always talked about why I want to work at Blizzard, and is it because of the money, or is it because of the stature? And it's more just because I felt like Blizzard was a company that would treat their employees like like people, like actual assets, like things that they would need to invest in or look after. Not that saying that obviously game studios have a thing where they mistreat people, but I just felt like Blizzard had this pinnacle of like they really looked after the people they employed. Was that the same for you, or is it just the projects, or?
No, I mean I had the chance there to go and visit once, and I was also like at BlizzCon last year, so I did like the sense of community and everyone working there. People are just being super friendly and really enjoy being there and working there, and I think you can see that like how they share their stories and also like how the players love their game. So I think they're doing definitely the right thing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like Blizzard in itself, I think it's just been. I think that's why they pick the people they pick. I think people always said this a while back. There was that it wasn't just the portfolio. It was more just like, do they have a passion for the Blizzard franchises? Can you see it? When they talk to you. If that's the case, and it's more like they want to hire those people than anybody else, because they want people on that project. They want people on that team that are very passionate about the world. Because then it bleeds through into the work they do, right? So yeah, I mean, even just watching some of the guys like Glenn Rain back in the day talking about his process, and Samael and stuff, and yeah, some of the guys they just bleed Blizzard all over their desks most days. So yeah, and then of course moving to King, is that are you in the London studio, or you? No, of course you're in Sweden. You're in Stockholm.
I'm in
So
Stockholm, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, what was the initial attraction? Going from your last position at the King, was it a project that had inspired you as well, or were they offering some kind of development with you as an artist? What kind of brought you into the company?
It was actually so after my second job at CodeSync, I had the opportunity to go and work at Blizzard, but like the problem was I didn't get the visa. So
Oh,
because it's under like this whole Activision umbrella, it's like this big company, King is part of it, Blizzard is part of it, uh,
mm,
all the Call of Duty franchises are part of it. They kind of referred me there, and I was like, yeah, cool, I'll check it out. I'll interview with them. I went over there, and it's a really, really friendly environment, and I think they do it like very similar. They take really good care of their people, and
mm.
people generally really enjoy working there and being there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I have heard very similar stories. I couldn't name names at the moment because, yeah, I think I've met them only once or twice, but I have spoke to a couple of guys who've worked at King, and they've said it is a very great environment to work in, a lot of equal opportunities, a lot of diverse and international staff, and great projects. And yeah, they do look after the people that work there. So yeah, I think that's one of the biggest concerns when you're working at a studio. It's not just the project, it's not just the pay, it's also, am I going to enjoy coming to my work every day? Am I going to enjoy talking to the people next to me? What's that going to feel like? Because um, for me, that's part of the reason I left my old job as an engineer, because I just didn't enjoy the work and some of the people I worked with. So, yeah, it was definitely a thing for me where I was like, yeah, I couldn't do this for the next however many years. For me, it would have been, 30, 40 years. But that must be a big factor in the fact that, you wanted to go there just to enjoy the atmosphere of the people that you were working
Yeah,
with. So
it's super important. If like the whole environment isn't good, or like you don't feel good, then I mean people move on. And I think as a company, you want people to feel good where you are,
yeah,
and usually they're very interested in you staying there.
yeah,
So I think a lot of companies are kind of shifting to that. I hope, at least. I mean, I don't know how it looks like in other places, but it's a really good environment.
yeah. I mean, you hear some horror stories, obviously. Like I think recently, the one I could talk about was Telltale. Obviously, I knew a couple of the guys when they were leaving. They were telling me stories like I don't give a shit. I don't work there, so they can't come after me. But yeah, like they were literally talking about, like, they got told, they got brought into a meeting room first thing in the morning. They were told they were fired. The projects were closing. The company was in trouble, and they had 30 minutes to leave the building. A lot of guys couldn't actually get any of their stuff from them desks. Like some people had their own Cintiqs and stuff, and they couldn't actually get into the building and get them back. Um, so like, yeah, like stuff for that, for me is like, I mean, the ultimate slap in the face. And one guy posted on Twitter, like, I spent weekends doing overtime and staying at night for nothing, like, and now I've been fired. So like, just don't do that with companies.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's probably one of the worst case scenarios. I'm pretty sure, or I've heard that most game studios aren't anything like that. Really, they are quite good at looking after their staff. So, but then again, the industry is still, I think, still young in a sense. So it's still maturing in a way. So yeah, like you said, I think there is a shift where people are now, or companies are now, looking at people as assets and people instead of just a number, like, or just a person to make some art. So yeah, that's a positive, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if I think hiring is probably for a company very difficult, and if you can't like ensure, or like if you can only keep people for like a year or so, then it's
Mhm.
getting very expensive for the company. So I think if you treat people well and have people like going to work, that's never a bad idea.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's something that you want to create a work culture, an office culture that inspires people to, if they need to stay late, then it's not as big a deal. You feel like you could because, you enjoy the place, you enjoy the people you work with. So, yeah, I think it's very important for people to do that. And I think it should be something people integrate going forward in other places. So, but then, I mean, like with your work as well, I mean, because you're doing these projects, and a lot of the stuff, you can't. I think, in fact, Spyro is one of the few things in the recent years you've been actually able to post on your portfolio.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then of course the Zelda thing you made recently, the substance material, which was also incredible. Um, where does your influence from style come from? Is it stylized games, or do you have artists in particular you've drawn from, or people you've looked at their work and you thought, I'd love to make something like that, or where does that come from?
I think it's like from like it's probably from different kind of mediums and everything. I've never really been like, if I play games, it's usually like, oh cool, it's super realistic. That's not really like what I'm drawn to.
Yeah,
So I think I figured out quite quickly myself that why should I make art that I don't enjoy playing?
yeah,
But also, uh, I think like growing up, I really loved like Pixar movies, or like playing games, like for example anything like World of Warcraft. It's super stylized, or
yeah,
um, just the media I consumed was probably more stylized.
Yeah,
This doesn't mean I don't play like any. If it's not realistic, if it's realistic, I don't play it. That's not true.
yeah,
But it's just like a personal preference, and I want to show, like, if people look at my art online, I want them to know, okay, this person likes doing this, and you can clearly see that.
yeah, definitely. And was there one, in particular artist that you felt influenced you to go that way, or stuff you looked at early on that you felt was something that you could draw from, or was it just like you said, was it the media, like your animations you were watching or things you were consuming?
I think like uh, when I started studying, like most of the artists I looked at, they were doing like very stylized stuff. I know when I was studying, I looked at a lot of uh, artists like from World of Warcraft because I really like the colors and the shape language. So I was really like
Yeah.
following them and then trying to replicate that. And then I think later it just became a bit more like not so like dependent on these things, just going more freestyle and just like really finding like a subject I liked and then trying to stylize it myself and just trying
Oh
to
yeah.
like, bring my own thing to it a bit.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think that's the power eventually is when you initially get the inspiration, the stylized look you want, then taking that and making it your own is part of the journey. Like I know, like your work obviously is something that inspires me, and there's one guy in Blizzard. I think it's is it Michael Vicente.
Oh yeah,
Um, yeah, like his stuff as well. Like for me, is just like one of the pinnacles of like really cool stylized stuff.
yeah.
Like his sculpt,
I always loved looking at that stuff when I was sculpting something. Like how do I stylize sculpt, or like how do you even do
oh
that?
yeah,
And then like looking at his work and it's like, oh yeah, this is so cool. Like, I wanted to
yeah, yeah.
do the same.
Like his stylized sculpt stuff has always been like wow, like I'd love to replicate something like that, and yeah, then I think the harder bit is then finding your own take on that and building stuff that has your signature on it, especially with the stuff like Spyro, because then a lot of stuff would have to fit within the design guide of the Spyro games, but then it's less your personal flair and more just a stylized version that is universal between all the artists. But how do you feel even like with that work? Like you're doing at King. Is that the same? Are you feeling that you're getting to put your own stamp on the work, or are you finding that it's you have to more fit in with the style that appeals to the game? Or
Mm, that's how can I answer this? I don't think I can say a lot about this, but
yeah,
they have you there for a reason, and I think like what I'm doing right now, I can definitely help shape whatever we're doing.
yeah, of course, without talking about what you're actually doing. So no, that's good. I think it's you don't want to get lost in a company where you feel like you're not getting to express your own creative opinion on what you're doing. And then, I mean, is there a plan as well in the future? Like, I mean, I don't know, obviously, what you're doing at King and how busy you are, and of course, everybody will be busy with work. But do you want to get back into putting out more teaching stuff or more tutorial stuff? Is that something you'd want to keep doing again in the future?
Yeah, totally. Like I've made I think 2 or 3 tutorials, and like so far, like people were always like, "Oh, this is really helpful," and I really enjoy. Like sometimes I browse like ArtStation or Twitter, and I see like, "Hey, someone made this dungeon or the treasure chest tutorial I made," and I'm always really
Yeah,
happy and interested to
yeah.
see that. Oh, cool, people have doing this, and this looks awesome. And like, okay, then I think they learned something from me, which is really nice.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's one of, like I said, it's one of the few things I've found that has been not only a really great tutorial for an environment and also working within game assets and making game ready stuff, but also the stylized aspect of it and making it more appealing to that visual style. And again, it's something I feel that is lacking within the education space. Like I don't feel there is enough people exploring that avenue, that style of 3D making, which I think is one of the things you're obviously leading in. Because I mean, like I think it's some of the bigger companies like Blizzard, a lot of those guys will be in a point where they're just so busy with work they'll never be able to do tutorial stuff. I mean, like we were talking about Simon's tutorial that I'm doing just now, and that's one of the few people I've seen at Blizzard actually put out tutorials for environment stuff, and I feel like it's something that I would love to see more of, but again, it's very rare, and
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I think also like it also depends where you work and like what the policies there are. For example, like what kind of things can you do while you work and not share like any inside information. And like if I show you something that I do, which I also do at work, then
Hmm.
there might be some trouble. So
Yeah,
I think making tutorials and all that is a very good thing to do when you're freelancing.
mm. When you're actually a company, it's difficult. Yeah, I think the Blizzard guys especially, because I have tried to talk to a couple of them to come on the podcast, and yeah, they've been told kind of like straight out like they can't do any kind of media stuff. It's very hush hush. Like a lot of them can't interview, and I've seen a lot of the guys, their profiles on Facebook, they have like my opinions on my own. Like they don't want to get people confused that like the things the artists are saying on their Facebook or anything connected with Blizzard. I mean, even when I spoke to Mark, it was lucky that obviously he'd been left the company for about a year, so he had no further connection to the company, so he
Yeah.
could just talk about his job. Um, so yeah, it was one of those things where there's so many awesome people there doing such awesome work, and you want to be able to sit and have a conversation with them, but it's rare to meet people outside. And then when you do meet them, you can't really talk to them in an official capacity, recording or anything. You could have the conversations on and I mean, I've talked to guys from Blizzard, about their work, off, as I say, off camera, off record. But yeah, they could never come on in an official capacity and talk about what they're doing because yeah, it's just very hush hush, as is most of the game stuff. So
Yeah, unfortunately, but it's just how it works, and it's like yeah, you try just to avoid like telling anything because you never know if you like make a mistake or not because it's
yeah.
not very clear.
Oh man, I mean, this was years ago before I actually left my job, and I actually used to do games media. So I used to cover events for websites and stuff, and write about games. And I got to go to one of the launches of the Arkham game when it first came out, the Arkham Asylum game. And one of the producer guys was saying that he got in trouble like the day before because someone had like screamed at the top of their lungs like, "Oh, we're going to get to play Robin," and the guy was like, "Why would you want to play as Robin? Like he's totally fucking terrible." And then like DC were literally like on the phone the next day, like, "You can't bash our superheroes. Please don't do that." It was like, "Oh fuck." So so yeah, like you have to be super careful, especially when it comes to like protected IPs and these big franchises that have run for years because yeah, especially King, like it's such an entity in itself now. Like they've almost taken over the world when it comes to mobile games and stuff like that because they're just everywhere. Um, so yeah, it's one of those things you don't want to tread on anyone's feet and say something that could potentially lose you your job. So yeah, that's got to be a landmine you want to avoid. So I mean, when you come in, you've came straight from the education system. You've went through these jobs. You've talked about moving from kind of space to space, and now you're at King. When you look at, I mean, I suppose you will get people eventually that will ask you for feedback on their portfolio and stuff. Is there anything you're seeing as a trend when it comes to maybe especially environment artists? Do you feel like there's something people are missing, or there's something that you feel like they should be doing but aren't when it comes to applying for jobs at
Um,
King or anywhere?
so I think for environment artists, I see a lot of portfolios that say you're an environment artist, but I don't see a single environment, which sometimes people make like an asset, like a weapon, then maybe a fire hydrant, and then maybe another asset, and then
Mm,
they say they're environment artists, and it's not like you probably if you hire for environment artists, you want to see finished environments, and that includes like lighting,
yeah,
setting up a mood, maybe having like it doesn't need to be gigantic, but just show us something that tells a bit of a story, has a bit of an
right.
atmosphere, and like I see a lot of people having um, who actually should call themselves asset artists or like probably work on it a bit more before they should apply for environment art jobs.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, like, that's an interesting statement because, I mean, like, every single artist in the world is different, right? Everybody has an opinion about what you should and shouldn't show in portfolios and what you should be focusing on. But I did have a conversation with an established artist who's worked in the industry who was saying that, I'll no name names, but the comment was basically that when you're building a portfolio, especially for environment stuff, you should be focusing on individual assets, because he says typically when you get hired, your first job or work would be building assets for an environment. He feels that there isn't enough overlap where people wouldn't be as accomplished enough to build a whole environment and make it look impressive enough to be hired. I'm going to say, do you feel that's the case? But I'm probably assuming from your answer previously that it wouldn't be. Like, you feel,
I think I can understand that as well, but like it's I think making assets or being able to model something is usually in many artists' skill set already, and
yeah,
and but then having like seeing you put it together is a totally different skill, I think. But
right.
I don't disagree with what you just said. It's true.
Yeah, no, I think there's both sides of the coin there. I think there is merit in what you're both saying, and yeah, I think it's just, I think having, in my opinion, I think having both, yeah, would like have a couple of, but then you can even build it into something, right? You could focus on one environment, but then use the individual assets as a starting point to build something, and then put those assets in a scene and in an engine and light them, and then that becomes your environment, right? That becomes your storytelling, your thing you're putting at the end of it. So you
Yeah,
could
totally.
definitely do both. So yeah, I mean, like, yeah, it's just a different take on it, on the same thing. But so apart from the not having environments in the portfolio, is there something you feel like, even program wise, do you feel like more people should be modeling and like using ZBrush and Mudbox? Do you feel people should be sculpting more, or do you think you can still just model stuff by hand and Maya and other programs, or even texture and lighting? Is that something also you feel people lack, or?
I think, yeah, I mean, I just said lighting is super important because
Mm,
you can make like the most beautiful assets and you can make the like coolest scene, but if the lighting is bad, then it shows, and then
yeah,
it shows that you might have a poor like taste or choice, and it might not be your intention, but it's just you didn't finish it 100%, and it could look so much better. And then why didn't you do it?
yeah,
And for programs, I don't think it matters. Like if you do Max or Maya, who cares? Like at
mm,
the end, if you can model, then just
yeah,
take some time and learn the other program.
yeah,
For sculpting, I don't know if that's like for environment artists. I rarely sculpt, and like even like now with like Substance Designer and Substance Painter, I sculpt even less, even though it's like probably the thing I enjoy the most, but it's
right,
also the thing that takes the most time. So I think
yeah,
there are so many things you can do now to speed up your workflow. But
yeah.
it's nice to have, of course, but it's not the most important thing anymore, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I feel like a lot of the environment stuff or prop stuff is going towards people using Substance Designer and using procedural modeling within that program. Like, one of the guys, is it Javier Perez? Like, he actually done the stylized axe within Designer, but none of it was modeled. It was all just procedurally generated through the program, which freaked me the fuck out.
Yeah, I
So,
saw that too. That was crazy.
oh man, and then even looking at your Zelda stuff, I mean, was that something that was modeled, or was that something also that you were doing procedurally within Designer?
No, that was like completely Substance Designer, and it's like I didn't. I mean, I kind of knew what I wanted to do, but I'm quite new to the program, so I was like, okay,
Yeah,
what is a cool thing, like cool material I can do? And I was like, yeah, cool. I love Zelda, and I love
yeah,
like the shrine, so let's make a material based on that. And yeah, it turned out you don't need to model it, which is scary.
crazy. Yeah, very crazy. I mean, even looking at your graph, like for that program, I was having a seizure. Like, it looked so incredibly complicated. You
Yeah,
know, like,
it's so weird with these graphs because I don't like to post them because I don't see the point. But there's always people, oh, please, why don't you show your graph? And yeah, it's because it's super gigantic and messy. How do you even understand what's going on?
oh god, yeah. Like, I mean, just looking at the node system and that, I was like, oh my god, there was so many, separate entities, even just for like your ring part in the background, the lines, the eye shape, the concrete. So I was just getting lost in how would you just navigate that? I mean, it's hard, I think, or hard enough for me working in stuff like Hypershade, where you're plugging in assets and that, and going from something like that to Designer is such a massive leap.
Yeah, it's kind of true, but it's really funny. I'm not that kind of technical person, or like if you give me something with a node-based interface, I'm usually like, oh no, not for me. But it was super interesting to dive into it, and it's just like it's a different way of thinking, but in the end, you're still making art. It's just the way how you get there is just completely different.
Yeah, I think it's just these things where technology is so rapidly moving forward, almost to the point, some of us can't keep up with it. But it's also like the AI stuff now that's getting generated. AI things that can generate scenes or pictures just from a couple of lines, and it is terrifying. Because you almost feel like you have to keep up with some of that as well, because that's going to be something that's going to be used in studios at one point. I mean, why wouldn't it be? There was one of the guys, I think Shadi actually shared it, where it was one of his friends in LA that he'd made a procedural generator or an AI generation software where it could build an environment just from like a couple of lines or a couple of words. I think it was like a kid's bedroom. And the computer basically modeled and lit the entire thing in a couple of hours, and I was just like, how? Like, how is this? Are our jobs in danger? Should we be panicking? But
Yes.
yeah, I think the technology's a while off yet, but it was still scary to look at that stuff and
I mean,
think,
yeah, if you look at how fast things are like moving, like every year there's something new, or it's a bit scary, but it's also um, just like I try to be on top of it a little bit and just be like at the moment, like with Substance Designer or something, I'm just so amazed because like it's like, oh my god, this is so different and this is so
yeah,
cool, and I didn't think this would work, but then like having a lot of fun discovering new like ways of working
yeah.
is really nice.
Yeah. No, yeah. I think it's going to be the fact that the thing with Substance as well is, and that'd be another whole hour podcast. I know the Flip Normal guys have talked about it at length, but the fact that they're now under the Adobe umbrella is giving a couple of people palpitations. So I don't know where that program is going to go from here, how it's going to be handled by Adobe. Um, but as far as I know, the last time they talked about it, like the Substance team is still the Substance team. That's never going to change. But now they just come under the umbrella of the Creative Cloud. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because Substance is now becoming more the standard for texturing than most other programs. I mean, I've never really ever touched Mari or Quixel stuff, so I would be kind of lost when they come to that stuff. But I don't know. I feel like Substance is quite user friendly. I feel like it's no as difficult to take on and understand that as much as it is other programs like with Megascans. So, I mean, do you feel like Substance for you is more user friendly, or is it something that you just use more because you're within the games industry, or?
I think I agree with you that it's super user friendly, and it's like it's used. Everyone I talk to is using Substance in their studio, and I think though I know some people who use Quixel, but I never like personally used it. And like now that it's like within Adobe, like I don't know how that's gonna be with like the licensing and pricing and all that, but it's like very it's
Yeah,
part of the same package anyway. Then probably I see a lot more people using it.
yeah, definitely. I think it's just Substance I've probably seen from their days of building that in France, and it being quite a small thing to now where it is. I think Adobe is definitely going to give them that reach, that
Because
push out.
every studio or everyone is using Photoshop, and if it's the same kind of like in the same launcher or umbrella or whatever, they're gonna have plans for it. Then why would I
Yeah,
switch out of this to go somewhere else?
no, of course not. It does make a lot of sense. Yeah, so yeah, definitely. Okay, so well, definitely all that is super awesome. But I also have one last question, which is, how is Project Hans getting on, or House, or I'm not too sure how you say it, but yeah.
It's a German word. It's a Hanse, which is kind of the architecture, like the way the architecture is called.
Okay.
Where I grew up in Germany, and I thought like when I was there, like every now and then, it's so cool, and I would like to see that in an environment. Um,
Right.
so I'm very very slowly chipping away on that and kind of trying to go a bit like Overwatch style on it. Um,
Yeah.
but it's a bit. I'm dividing my free art time kind of between that and Substance Designer, and I'm having so much fun with Substance Designer at the moment that I really need to go get back on that. But I'm not in a rush, so I'm just working on it whenever I feel like it. And
Yep.
but it's definitely still on my list to finish.
Yeah, I mean, every time I kind of see the blog coming up, and I think it was only recently you started pushing the blogs out when you started, making bits of assets and making the kind of environment. And I was like, oh, thank God, like I've loved to see, more of his personal work. And when that came out, I was like, oh, this is something else I can follow. So yeah, it's one of those things. I just love diving into the world you create. I think that's one of the things I found that draws me to artists of your caliber is the worlds you create with your storytelling, and the places you invent. You can get lost in. It's very exciting for me. Like I said, I want to be able to do that one day and make my own place. Guys like yourself, and there's also a Russian artist I really love. I can never say his name properly, but it's Arseniy, Arseniy. He made. I think you linked him on your blog ages ago. That's how I got turned on to him. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Kind of.
I think his surname's Chebinkin.
Uh-huh.
Chebinkin. He does like the kind of anime Japanese style.
Oh, that one. Yeah. Now I know this. Oh, this was super awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, like his stuff as well is like every time I look at one of his pictures, I'm like, I would love to get lost in that, in that world. Actually, one of the guys I went to university with, Kazuya, he actually made a 3D representation of one of his paintings or one of his environments or his. I forget it was the Japanese inn. I'll send it to you afterwards, but yeah, like his stuff as well. It's the world creation stuff that really gets me excited. So
yeah,
I'll be waiting with bated breath to see how that turns out.
That's my favorite part, to just create like this space where people get lost in, or like there's something to discover, and just by looking, without even like having to play it, but just by looking in it, I want to be there, and that's like probably the most fun that the job is, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, if you're not having fun, then what is the point? So, yeah, man, I totally agree with you. Well, yeah, again, thanks for coming on, Tobias. It has been really awesome talking to you and getting to learn more about your world. And yeah, just definitely. You guys stay tuned on the Artcast and leave a comment for Tobias if you want. I'm sure you'll see it, and I'll put his links below in the description. Check us out on all the podcasting sites. We're now on Spotify, iTunes, Soundcloud, and a lot of other things. Yeah, you'll find us everywhere. And check out the YouTube version depending on when you're watching. And yeah, guys, that's another episode wrapped up. Thanks to Tobias again for coming on. It was really awesome to talk to you. No, you're welcome, man. And yeah, we'll see you guys later. Bye, everybody.
Bye.